I will be discussing Je veux vivre from Charles Gounod's Romeo et Juliet. I'll start with a formal overview and talk about the large-scale form and the overall phrase structure of the piece. After examining the diagram, we'll listen to the entire aria and follow along with the score. Here is the overall form of the piece. It is in compound binary form and is made up of two large sections, A and B. The aria begins with a 14-measure introduction and then moves into a large A section. The entire large A section is in rounded sectional binary form, and the large A section uses the Kaplan theme of a 32-measure period made up of a 16-bar antecedent and a 16-bar consequent. We then move into the 26-measure B section, where the key changes from F major to A minor. From here, we return to the A section in F major and cadence with a perfect, authentic cadence. This repeat of the A section is a bit unusual because while it features the 16-measure antecedent and consequent, the accompaniment in the last measure of the consequent overlaps with the first measure of the large B section. The large B section begins in B-flat major and transitions back into F major at measure 150. This section does not exhibit any specific form, but instead acts as a large transition into the coda. The aria ends with a 16-measure coda featuring in the accompaniment the melody of the main motive, leading to a perfect, authentic cadence. Let's go ahead and listen to the entire piece. I've labeled the sections of the form in blue, key changes in red, and cadences in green. Now that we've listened to the whole piece, I'll go into some more detail about it. Let's start with the motives and themes found in the piece. This aria has two main motives. We'll call these motives X and Y. Motive X is found in the opening line of each A section. This is also the basic idea seen in the phrase structure of the period. The motive is then repeated to create an 8-bar phrase. We see this primarily in the rhythm of both the accompaniment and the vocal line, as it features strong downbeats that create the feeling of a waltz. For the first two measures of this motive, the vocal line and the bass of the accompaniment provide the downbeat followed by the accompaniment playing beats 2 and 3. Motive Y is very similar to motive X, as they both feature the same rhythmic structure in the accompaniment. The harmonic relationship between the vocal line and the accompaniment is interesting because it features dissonances between the two instruments that are quickly resolved in the next beat. The first measure of motive Y shows a G in the bass paired with an F in the vocal line. The F then moves to E, resolving the dissonance with a C major 7th chord in third inversion. In the next measure, Gounod does the opposite, pairing the E in the vocal line with a C in the bass. The E moves to a D, accompanied by a C major 7th chord with the 5th omitted, creating a cluster chord consisting of B flat, C, D, and E. Motives X and Y make up the basic idea and fragmentation found in the antecedent and consequent of the period. This Kaplan theme type is made up of a 16-bar antecedent followed by a 16-bar consequent. The antecedent consists of two 4-measure basic ideas, followed by a 4-measure unit, and two 2-measure fragments. The consequent also includes two 4-measure basic ideas, followed by a 4-measure unit, and comes to a perfect authentic cadence with a 4-measure cadential. An unusual harmonic event occurs in the large B section at measure 152. The accidentals in the vocal line make it difficult to hear the tonic and cause the listener to anticipate a modulation to a new key. Despite the feeling of transitioning to a new key, the piece remains in F major. In measure 159, we clearly hear the dominant C major chord being played in the accompaniment. In this final section, I will be talking about performance recommendations, followed by some of my likes and dislikes regarding this piece. I have two main performance recommendations for this piece. It is necessary to include rallentandos, especially in the repetitive A sections. This makes the piece more interesting while highlighting some of the soprano's money notes, such as the A5 shown in the circled section below. Another section where the soprano's highest money notes should be slightly elongated is in measures 152 through 162, also shown below. Doing so will prevent the runs from becoming sloppy and help avoid vocal fatigue. Another recommendation is to play the accompaniment lightly so that the vocalist doesn't have to compete with the orchestra. Due to the lack of instrumental interludes, the soprano must pace herself throughout the aria in order to successfully sing the coloratura featured at the end of the aria. She cannot do this if she is singing at full voice to match the dynamics of the accompaniment. Overall, I really enjoy this aria, but I have mixed feelings about the large B section. I find that it makes the piece more exciting, and I enjoy its unpredictable nature in contrast with the repetitive A section. However, from an analysis perspective, this section was difficult to formally analyze because it had no specific recurring theme types. One of the elements of this piece that I enjoy the most is the accompaniment line of the main theme. The bouncy 1-2-3 waltz feeling exhibits a very simple text painting that represents Juliet's excited heartbeat as she exclaims, "Je veux vivre dans ce rêve." I want to live in the dream which thrills me. In this presentation, I've discussed the large-scale form of the piece and examined the phrase-level form in more detail. I also identified recurring themes and motives throughout the A section. Using my knowledge as a vocalist and from what I have learned through analyzing the form of this piece, I was able to make performance recommendation that could enhance the piece as a whole. Lastly, I discussed what I liked and disliked about the aria from the perspective of a listener and from an analysis standpoint. Thank you for tuning into this video lecture. Merci et adieu.